Welcome to the hills of western Massachusetts, where we are working to bring back passenger train service. Engineer Pete McLachlan is still with us and still talking about trains. A volunteer film crew interviewed him in 2019 at the Danbury Rail Museum.
My railroad career started on a date. I'm loving trains. I'm a senior in high school, and I asked a girl out to the prom.
What year was that?
This is 56. So I asked her, what does your father do? He's head of public relations for the New Haven Railroad. Oh, I picked a good one. So she got me a summer job that lasted. It's 56. My first job was in New Haven, working on electric freight locomotives. No running. Then I transferred here to Danbury, and the rest of my career was out of Danbury. Promoted to fireman and then promoted to engineer in 1965. Now, you just don't get promoted. You have to mechanical, signals, physical, and then to qualify Danbury to Pittsfield, I had to draw the line, physically draw the line, every crossing, every switch, everything, which way it faced, flashers, and then you go into the train dispatcher that he qualified. He asks you these questions. So now you qualify Danbury to Pittsfield. Start at Kent, go back to Carmel. Oh. But I got by, and then they ride with you. Now, as a fireman, I was also running trains with the engineer's permission, so I didn't go in cold turkey.
That's one of the things I believe you told me when we met before, that there were special trains for certain events.
Oh God, we had two full-time passenger for Danbury to Pittsfield, Ned Coakley and Guy Simmons. Miss Hall School would take coaches, all the camps, baseball specials, you name it. On the New Haven Railroad, if we decided today we'd like to run our train to Pittsfield, we have the people. You got it tomorrow. None of this red tape. So all kinds. Now, Miss Hall School would hire guards to keep the guys' school from breaking in the coaches. They had to keep the girls from breaking out. But specials all over the place.
What was a parlor car like? I've never seen it.
Parlor car was, you see a coach with 4 seats. Parlor car is 2 rows, but 1 single seat that swivels back and forth, has a parlor car attendant to wait on drinks and all that, and only seats 32 versus 80 in a coach. We had the parlor car Friday night up and Sunday night down, and it was always full.
And what could people order?
Drinks. We also had light buffet car. Get a sandwich or something. We had full diners when I started. Full diner. And I remember when I started on the passenger train, the road foreman, McLachlan, you remember one thing. Don't get the waiters mad, you won't get a sandwich. Parlor car, Webster. Now we had a bar car then, a full bar car. Jamie's the bartender, Grand Central to New York. He's turning in $1,000. Webster takes over, Jamie retired. He's turning in $3,500. So the New Haven is, put a spotter on. Instead of taking like 1 case of gin down, he's taking 3. They put a spotter, spy. So he's getting off at Canaan, the superintendent says, I'm waiting to take a freight. And he says, what's he doing? Don't ask. What do you mean, don't ask? What he did, he had regulars to Pittsfield. He put them behind the bar to make drinks. And another thing now, we're in Canaan, getting ready, and Stanley says, the president's just been shot. Well, we got to go. So we have no radios, but we get to Barrington, walk down Main Street, empty. Not a soul. I said, he's dead.
Are there people you remember?
Yes, yeah. We had Mrs. Johns. Her husband owned the motel in Cornwall Bridge. She was a vice president for CBS. So she spent the week in New York, Monday morning. Coming up, when she's on the train, below Cornwall Bridge Station, we had to lean on the whistle. So he would hear it, close the office for 10 minutes, go down and pick up his wife. The Busy Bee restaurant, we would eat. You had another restaurant up near wasn't Main Street. We go up Sunday morning up on the passenger train. We had 4.5 hour lay in Pittsfield, 1:10 to 5:25. We'd go up to eat. This waitress never wrote down an order for 4 of us and never missed. So one time she goes, I conduct, let's change chairs. I said, I don't think we better. But the Busy Bee was a good restaurant. We had a bunk room to lay over by Eaton Paper, the factory. It's all parking lot, not a trace. And we'd lay over there, and we were right on the Boston and Albany main line. I'd take pictures. Friday night, she laid over in the, now Pittsfield then, I think had walking patrol policemen. It'll be in the bunk room, which is isolated. It'd be 2 policemen come in and have coffee. You know, Pittsfield had also the last public bathrooms that I knew. You know, I'm not being funny. Also, the trolley headquarters was there years ago, out towards the North Adams Junction. So Pittsfield, I'd be set up there for a week, stay at the Pittsfield City Motel before we had the bunker. But GE, what a big customer they were.
Yeah.
They would hire, when the New York Yankees and Boston played a twilight doubleheader in New York, they'd hire and charter an 8-car train for GE. It was a happy train when Boston won and a very unhappy train. We even brought celebrities galore. Arthur Fiedler played tank, brought him in New York. He never failed to come up to the engine and say thank you. Going to Lakeville, up to West Stockbridge, that track is gone. We got too many lasts.
We're going to have some firsts now. That's the plan.
So you had mentioned that there were different types of propulsion for the trains. There was steam, there was...
Steam, diesel, and electric.
So tell me a little bit about the electric, because I'm kind of fascinated by that.
Quickly, you see those photos? They're all there. They had overhead wire here, catenary.
Yep.
And we did 11,000 volts. The train from New York to Pittsfield would change to diesel here, or steam early, because they're here to Pittsfield, no overhead wire.
Okay, so the electric was just to Danbury?
Just to Danbury, from Grand Central.
Okay.
And foolishly, they took it down in '61. We won't go into that. So that was the electric. Diesel, of course, Maybrick over the Poughkeepsie Walkway Bridge I ran, you know. So steam, a railroad club bought a steam engine, had no home for it, so the neighbor said, bring it here. This is the good home. So then they planned some trips to Canaan. And I qualified for steam in Florida in 1961 on the Gold Coast, Florida East Coast Railroad.
What were the qualifications that you needed
how to
for
keep
steam?
the boiler from blowing up, and, you know, coal and water. And
So there was truly a fireman for the steam,
there was
yes?
a real fireman. So they worked at the time, the club that was organizing the trip, I was president of, but I was not in there. So all right, now they're going to have a trip out of here Saturday to Canaan. We're going to leave the steam engine in Canaan, come back on and have shuttle run. So the road foreman of engineers calls me up, Mr. Copeland. You ran steam in Florida. Yes, sir. 1961. You're good. So now we run the trip. Not a single piece of paper signed or written. Pete, run the trip. How many coaches do you think she'll pull? Well, probably 6 the max. We'll take 3. We'll charge you $10 to take what you need off 14 and go.
And that was it?
That was it.
All the
Nothing done.
protocol necessary?
So we ran a shuttle out of Canaan down to Malby just for one day. We figured 500 people, 1,300. State police could not believe it. I ran them. So, okay, we run the trips. Now, union regulations we had to put in for pay. We put in for pay, turned it over to the club. This was not, so we had a regular fireman off the New Haven who actually fired because where am I going to do this again? Kept an eye on him for boiler pressure. And then we ran one more trip, and I brought the engine down light with one coach. Penn Central came in, get it off the property. That was the end. You heard of Winston Churchill saying an iron curtain has ascended? Penn Central. It was brutal.
So I want to ask you also about the different declensions or the different types of trains that ran on the Berkshire line.
Oh, okay.
Because you had mentioned that there were express trains too that
Oh, yes.
wouldn't stop at the normal stops.
Right. We had the Titanic was 5 p.m. out of Grand Central, 5:10, and the Saturday only, that was for Tanglewood crowd. Sunday morning train had a lot of Sunday matinee. This is during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
During the winter, we ran trains up for the resorts.
For
And
skiers?
All the, I can't name them all, but some far away, but they met the train with a bus.
Mm-hmm.
All that business, and we had Ned Coakley, a guy just constantly drumming up business. Camp Getaway in Kent, Mohawk. We'd have all these 5-6 extra trains for camps. We call them MLM trains, Mother's Little Monsters. That was a semi-official Mother's Little Monsters.
So you had trains that would stop along the way.
Oh yes, yeah.
And then you had trains that were pretty much express from Grand Central to Pittsfield.
To make any railroad, to make it confusing to an engineer, no two trains alike. So you'd write the schedule out on the dashboard because every train is different. Then they had a habit of halfway through the summer, they change your schedules by 4 or 5 minutes, just to keep you drinking. But you did, and yes, some would be flag stops. We'd only stop when we had somebody for the stop or somebody waving us down. Brookfield was Gaylordsville. Now one night we're going, it had snowed bitterly. We're leaving Danbury, and Bobby Kelly says, I've got a very elderly woman for Gaylordsville. There's nothing there. So he said to her, what are you going to do? She said, I'll get a taxi. Well, Gaylordsville ain't no taxi. So we stopped at New Milford. We hung in there a while. She called the people to meet her at Kent. This is what we did, you know.
Yeah, you accommodated your passengers and made sure they were safe and got.
And when the Kennys bought the station, but then you get the people from New York. Now this is no against New Yorkers. Coming down and you'd hear the bud car, you could hear the passengers. Oh look, Junior, look at all the deer out there. Moo, moo. I said, oh, they're from the city.
Yeah.
Or another time, Craig and me says, this woman, look back and she had put all these shiny bushes, poison sumac. So we calmly told her to ditch it in large soap or something. We never saw it. She said, not a regular. But see, look out. But I love that moo. Look at the deer. Junior.
Yeah, the deer. How did the train handle like large snowstorms? Did you continue to run during large snowstorms?
We didn't do like today. They close all these trains down. When the bud car was a single unit, they put a locomotive on the front.
Okay.
And we could bring it up.
And would the locomotive just be enough power to pull through?
Oh yes. Yeah.
Was there any kind of attempt? I mean, and I'm just conceptualizing this myself, but did a train have a V plow on it that may clear the snow?
I don't know a plow pilot that would do light snow.
Okay.
Yeah, heavy snow, we had a flanger that would clear or the plow.
Sure.
But the bud car could not go in snow.
It could not.
Just too light.
Yep.
So they put the engine on.
I see. So the engine was more for ballast, for weight, to be able to take it through.
But never had problem with snow. Not saying they didn't. Heavy freights going to Maybrook, just pushed it away.
So that's interesting because one of the attributes for passenger rail service is that it's typically not slowed down by weather.
Typically not. Now, I'm not saying weather won't slow it down. You have a 40-foot blizzard or a hurricane. Most of the problems with the trees down.
Okay.
And sometimes a washout, but I never got canceled.
In one of the clips of the documentary, The Last Train to Pittsfield, it shows, I believe you were in Canaan, and it shows a flagman, and I believe he was guiding you across Route 44 and 7. So was that distinctive for Canaan, where you actually had to have a ground flagman to escort the train across a roadway?
Only at certain hours they had the gate tender. Sundays they did not. So Leroy is in civvies, if you remember. Or Nicky too, but Lee, he was a pilot conductor because the conductor came out of New York. He is not qualified to Danbury, so Lee came in. He was not a pet, so he flagged. Oh yeah, normally the gates would, Frank Zucco, they would have the gates down. But Sundays, he's not on duty. Same as Lee. Saturday morning, we'd have to stop at Lee and flag. But we went to Joe's Diner and got a coffee to go. You know, that was in the newspaper one time, so we're going to hear about this. Joe's Diner.
Still there, by the way.
Yeah, it's changed. Though. I remember the original, I think it was Korean vet or something. But so Andy and Miss Hawes for school. So those were places we had to flag.
Did you also, you mentioned Miss Halls, did you also have other school passengers?
Oh God, there's Kent School,
Yep.
Sheffield, on and on and on. My brothers went to Choate in Wallingford. When they played Kent or Kent, they'd have a private train, Choate to Kent or Kent to Choate, Wallingford. See what I mean? You want a train? You got one. So I never rode. I flagged, photographed them going by once. So I can't mention the number of zoo trains, baseballs, flower show trains, auto show trains, boat show trains in New York. We'd fill the train up.
So when there was a special event, either here in Northwest Connecticut or the Berkshires or in the city, there could actually be a special car or special excursion.
Special car and a special train. Ned Coakley and Guy Simmons worked full time up there. Remember that. And unlike the Appendix, they were there for years. His son just retired as an agent. But they're out knocking on doors. You know, you want to train? Well, they didn't have to knock after a while. Everybody just came.
Right.
Tanglewood, twice a year, GE, 8-car train when they played Boston Red Sox, twilight doubleheader. So we wouldn't get back to Pittsfield at 1, 2 a.m. Unload them and go right back to Danbury with the equipment. It was there. And then you had a special. New Haven would print up these big signs, your name on the window. But I just can remember that thing in Barrington, not a car in sight.
Yep.
This is like 1 o'clock. And everything, I said, he's gone. Because we left Canaan, just heard he'd been shot. So it was like 2 more hours before we got to Barrington.
Well, you clearly had an important job. I mean,
Well,
you were helping people, transporting people, getting them where they wanted to go in a timely fashion. So that's an honorable
thank
profession.
you. But one Christmas day we're working here, the pastor come up and she starts chewing our caboose out for working on Christmas Day. I mean, she's really. Conductor, Charlie Smith said, excuse me, ma'am. Where did you come from? New York, of course. And what do you do? I'm going to dinner at my daughter's house. How did my train? Can't you see? What if we didn't work? Hit her.
Yep.
She just walked off. And other people try and tip you. We do not take tips. So I had the full diner to Pittsfield. Then they cut it back. But you don't get the waiters mad. Because we'd have for $1, they give us what was left over. It's like 10:30 at night, you know.
It's interesting how much power the waiters had.
Oh, God. Yeah. To me, all the waiters I knew and talked to, is how they could take the check, hold it against the table, and snap it off, you know. And I said, that was your greatest thing.
Yeah.
But they were good.
So how was I wanted to ask you, I'm sorry, I wanted to ask you about the ticketing. So you had your engine staffed. You were the engineer, and you had the fireman. And so then the conductor would then ticket.
Conductor and ticket collectors. I don't know to this day how they kept it straight. We had so many different varieties of fare. Clergy, religious, military, female on Wednesdays. I was going to dress as a woman nurse in the Army and get a free ticket. But I don't know how they did. Now, when you bought a ticket, they would snap off a book. This book had 100 tickets in it. If he loses it, He's personally responsible for the highest fares that are left. So they guarded that. But I don't know how they kept them up. I just don't know.
When you were running a full train with a dining car and passenger cars as well, what was the declension? What was the roster of railroad employees from the engineer to the
Okay. Strictly train crew, engineer, fireman, trainman, ticket collector, conductor. RPO, you had a baggage master, if you had a baggage car.
and what would his role be?
Get your trunk off as hard and bad as you could. Smash it as much. The nicknames were baggage smashers. You know, then you had the mail car, you have RPO people in there, working post office employees.
So you would carry mail.
Oh yeah,
also.
we had mail. I remember picking mail up on the fly. Sheffield, Falls Village. We have a mail car out here. Mail car personnel were all post office. Got in the freight elevator, crank, 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 crank. Hundreds of women sewing. And that's where they're no longer made. Hickory stripe. This is called
Yeah.
hickory stripe. And this was my winter and summer jacket, but underneath. Someday I will learn. Thanks, Mommy.
You're wearing so many layers of clothing.
I know. Can you get it on over your other jacket? You're gonna be.
The only thing missing, Peter, those children's idiot mittens, where the string used to go through.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I need
Until I
those.
was 40, my mother tied my mittens to my jacket.
Yeah.
But she had to say which one was right and left. But these are, well, they're good. They have the deep pocket for your
Sure.
employee's timetable
Yep.
and all that.
Is this the button, are those the buttons you were talking about?
But I have, you never wash these, dry clean.
Pardon me?
This is old. This is probably years and years
Sure.
old.
Oh, look at the dude. That is super cute.
Can I have my wallet? But can't tell the difference because you can't see the controls anyway.
There he is. Okay. How many years has it been, Pete?
Oh, God.
How many years since you were?
20 years since I retired, but I miss it.
You miss it. You said you were gonna miss it, and you did miss it, right?
Yep.
What did you do the day after?
When I retired,
Yep.
reviewed all my old records for my collection. All right. I confess to you, Father. Oh, here, this is the shuttle train
There it is.
coming in.
There he is. Pete McLachlan, almost 50 years after the last train to Pittsfield. We're planning on having a first train to Pittsfield, and we want you to be on it, Pete.
Now, the train will come by here in about a minute.
Oh, yeah? Right there.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's the shuttles to Norway.
Terrific. Now, Jamie, do you remember what was it Pete said on the thing? He said, better get on. You said, we're leaving soon. You gotta get on. We need the money. I
Leaving
want
in
you to
1
say
minute.
that
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Leaving in 1 minute.
Oh, when I did that image, the train was going.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.